Lindsey Dunn from One of My Stories, a podcast about the stories shaping me. Today, we are starting something new. We're going back into time. Not just a show about the past, but a show from our childhoods. A show we all probably watched, whether we liked it or not, a lot. A show called Little House on the Prairie. And with me today is the man from Walnut Grove himself, Steve Barnes. Ahoy, Steve, or should I say wagons up?
Yeah, wagons up, Lindsey. It's me, Steve Barnes, from my podcast, Sweet Child of Time. So maybe some people are listening to one of my stories. Maybe they're listening to Sweet Child of Time, because I am a little sweet child of time here in this time period. We're talking about the 1870s in Walnut Grove, like you said. This is really exciting to get to go back in this time frame, Lindsey.
Yes, so we're back. We are back because Steve and I haven't podcasted together since the fall when we did Welcome to Derry. This is a very different show, or is it?
Well, yeah. It couldn't be more different, right? I can't think of many similarities. Can you?
Well, it's interesting because I was just, when we think about Little House on the Prairie, you think about a very cozy show, a very family-oriented show, but I'm like, dang, there was a lot of trauma happening. There was a lot of tragedy. There was a lot of scary stuff and some unhinged stuff happening. So I had sort of forgotten about that aspect of the show. So I was actually in the Fear of God podcast Discord telling them, hey, you could probably do a horror podcast about Little House eventually because of how much stuff was in it that was more, in some cases, more risque or traumatic than I really realized.
You're right. And I didn't even realize that through like my earlier watches of Little House on the Prairie, like when I was a kid and then again as a young adult. Even like when I read the books this time around, like in 2026, that's when I kind of realized, wow, it wasn't like a saccharine sweet story of the Ingalls, getting along. They went through some really hard times. They made some really strange decisions, not just the Ingalls, but the government at large. And I wouldn't say it's a welcome to Derry situation where you're like running for your lives, like from like scary talisman and like spirits and whatnot. But the cold, hard truth of reality is what's really scary here. And yeah, these early settler days were not all apple picking and whistling Dixie.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show, and I just want to stay a statement here, and then we can move forward. But I think it goes to show that there's all these often fears about kids and what they can handle. And I think what happens is that kids just comprehend the parts that they can, and a lot of the other stuff goes over their heads. And parents don't need to worry as much as they do because, for me, this was a safe show. And now as an adult, I watch it and I'm like, ooh, they also had to keep those adults entertained that they were watching this. So it just goes to show that people don't need to be so concerned about what is on their kids are watching. I'm not saying have your kids watch porn or anything, but we only comprehend what we can at that stage of life.
I think that's really accurate because what you're saying is reminding me, like I said, I'm reading the Little House books now, and I'm reading them from the perspective of a 5-year-old girl, especially in the first one. And she's looking at her family as her world. And we know that there's another world outside there beyond that. But, like you said, she is recognizing all the things that are happening around her and her family and the hardships that they're going through. But she's seeing it through her little kid eyes. So she's seeing them through like a different prism than the adults around her are. So she can see, in other words, she can see Pennywise. She can see him just fine and the adults can't.
Exactly. So let's talk about why we are doing this at all, Steve.
I think it's my fault, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is your fault. So talk to me about what's coming up for One of My Stories and Sweet Child of Time. What is coming up for us and why we decided to kick off this series.
I was telling you before we got on microphone that I've always kind of wanted to do some recaps of Little House on the Prairie because it's always been just a wholesome, likable show in my eyes. I'm not a Little House freak or anything like that, but I do, it's a show that I look back on with fondness, and I can rewatch it now and kind of still see it through that lens.
Dang, I'll have to take back that T-shirt I got you that said I'm a Little House freak.
I'll take it because I want to be a Little House freak. I'm getting more and more into it. So that's kind of what I aspire to be. So I want that shirt. But we found out, I guess, January of this year that they are doing a Little House remake and they want to reboot the series on Netflix. And this spurned my interest for a couple of reasons. First off, because I love the property and I think there's a lot of material there for them to work with. They don't really have to, there's not a whole lot of stretching they have to do. Everything is right there within the books. So that's, of course, interesting. But then I'm also interested in how they're going to do this because I know they can't copy the series because it's going to be a completely different tone. Mm-hmm. We're talking 50 years later. There's no way it's going to be anything like the TV show. But I'm hoping that it follows the path of the books that were given to us. They were written back in the 1930s. And it'd be great if we could see like a recreation, like a faithful recreation of those books while being honest to like the true history of like Manifest Destiny, because the books really gloss over that a lot. And the television show is guilty of it as well. And I have a feeling that, we're in a more modern culture now. Everybody is, more trying to be more inclusive and more relevant in what they're saying. So I'm really hoping that they're going to portray the early settlers in a more honest light, I suppose, not gloss over it the way it did in some of these episodes we watched recently.
So you're saying there might be more than, say, 3 Black characters.
Well, I mean,
there might be people of different, cultures coming into intersecting these stories in a different way than they did in the past, where it's, you have a special episode with an indigenous character but most of the time you don't see them, or you might have, I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think we need to mention some specific details though, that we're going to get into that more in our next episode, which will be coming out in about probably a month. But the new series comes out on July 8th on Netflix. And I'm guessing it's going to be drop the episodes all at once like they usually do, because there's no part 1,
July
part
9th,
2.
Actually. I'm going to correct you if I may, please.
Okay, fine. July 9th. And it'll be on Netflix. And we do plan on recapping that series. And yeah, Steve, so what's interesting is when we finished Dark, we'd both done 1899, we then finished Dark, and then we went on to do some movies and stuff. Well, Steve was all the time pitching what we could do next because he loves recapping TV shows. So, the thing was Little House kept coming up and I was just like, no way, no way, no way. I'm not going to do that. But this for me, it kind of went a little triggered an okay, because I was like, okay, there's a new series coming out. But if we're going to recap that, then we can look at the original series. But to be frank with you, Steve, it's become a little bit too much of an obsession for me. And I probably need to calm down about Little House stuff at this point.
Really? I like this. Okay, go on.
Yeah, just, I think you had started watching our episodes a lot sooner than I did. So we had made this plan that we were going to do this episode because we were like, okay, we'll do one episode about the original series where we talk about the book some and some of the TV show. Then in June, on our next episode, which will be in about a month, we are going to talk more about the new series and maybe some of the cast and what we think it's going to be like and sort of preview it, right? So you had started, like you usually do, immediately watching. As soon as I said, okay, let's do it, you were like, okay, we have this assignment, because what we decided to do was each of us was going to pick 3 episodes, which is hard to pick just 3. Right. Each of us would pick 3, and then we both watch it. And you started immediately, and I had some other things to do, so I just started last week. But the problem was, as I watched the episodes, and a lot of times I would realize, oh, this isn't the episode I was thinking of. It was actually another episode that sounded very similar to this episode. And in some cases, I was being led astray by AI to what my episode would be. We'll get more into that later. But I just started last week, and I've watched way more than 6 episodes. I've scanned a lot of episodes where you don't watch the whole thing, but you can kind of watch every 10 seconds, like by fast
Okay, that's a
forwarding.
little cheating, but okay, I'll accept it.
But yeah, because I don't know, I've just watched a lot more episodes, and now I almost do feel like I want to go back and watch the whole series, but not necessarily recap it. I'd like to go back and watch it all, because I'm like, wow, this is a lot better than I remember even. Yeah.
I totally agree. I watched way more than 6 episodes too. I think I've probably watched about 30, I think. I watched a lot of season 1. And I found that I'm a season 1 dude. I don't like it when they get to like season 5 and beyond. I'm going to be completely honest about that. But yeah, I watched a lot of episodes too. It's really easy to digest, and I have to watch entire episodes. I thought that I could do what you were saying and kind of scan them, because I watched the 6 episodes that we agreed on. I watched them all twice. And what I told myself is like, I'm going to watch them the first time and just watch them. And the second time, I kind of scan through, just kind of get some general ideas. I couldn't do that. I watched them all start to back. And I thought maybe I'll watch them like on, time and a half to like kind of speed them up a little bit. But I found that I really don't like doing that, because I like the pacing of this show. I like the vibe. I like the choices that the actors make. And I like some of the weird direction that the actors are giving and that they're forced to do. I just think it's just delightful. So I'm glad to hear that you're liking it too.
Some of the music is completely inappropriate. Like, it'll be like a really jaunty tune for a really tragic episode. So yeah, some of the music choices are bizarre, and I think Manifold would have a field day with it. Sorry, Manifold is a friend from our dark Discord group, and he often talks about music. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of history with like your prior history with the series. So, obviously you mentioned a long time ago how much you liked the series. Now, maybe like if somebody saw you like on the street, they wouldn't think, I bet that guy likes Little House on the Prairie, because, you guys can't, and maybe nobody's seen, I don't know, Steve posts pictures of himself, but he's a rather grisly looking bearded gentleman that wears mostly the color black all the time. He's a doomstoner. So maybe you wouldn't automatically think, I bet that guy's favorite show is Little House or one of them. So Steve, tell us a little bit about your history with the series and what makes it so special for you.
I mean, it has just a lot to do with my age. I was born in 1972, so I'm the perfect age to be watching this show as it's being aired. And we got to remember, this is the perfect show to watch with your family. So this was a show that I watched with my grandparents, with my sister, with my cousin. It was a family show. So it was just in the zeitgeist when I was a kid. There weren't a whole lot of shows. There was just like the 3 or 4 networks. So I was a TV watcher. I was always parked in front of the TV. So I pretty much watched every show that came out in the 70s. So Little House on the Prairie just happens to be one of them. The thing that really made it stick to me, though, because I love the show, of course, but I was always a big reader as well. When I was in school, my favorite place to be was in the library. And when you're like a little kid, you just read whatever's there. And so you also want to read what's familiar to you as well. So Little House on the Prairie, admittedly, if we're going to gender the book, it's a girl's book, right? It's from a girl's point of view, but it doesn't read like a female book. It just reads like a kid's book. So I recognized the series because I knew the show. So that drew me to the book. And of course, the first book that I read was the Little House on the Prairie book, which is book 3. But just the familiarity with the show led me to the book. The books dive way deeper into Laura, so that gives you more of a connection. So then when you're watching the show, or when I was watching the show, I just felt more connected to it, having read about this particular character. Then, of course, I grew up and, shit happens. And then I became an adult. Somewhere in the 90s, I suppose. I want to say like 1990, 1991 is when Little House on the Prairie started getting rerun a lot. And it was rerun along with like the most current episode of Highway to Heaven. It was like a double feature and it came on every day, like at 5 o'clock on USA Network. So me and my buddy Sam would always be watching these two shows because they were comfort shows. They were nostalgia shows. And of course, now that we're like old kids, young adults, you might call us, you might want to remember what it's like to be a little kid again. So it meant a lot to us at that time. And now I'm on stage 4, which is like revisiting all this as a old adult. And it's even better now. Like I'm finding a lot more nuance to it now than I ever did. Like, for example, I never really looked at it through like the lens that we were talking about earlier, how tragic that time period could be. I was noticing that more as an adult, reading it this time through. So yeah, that's my whole history. It's a pretty succinct story. It has like 3 parts, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So how about you, Lindsey? Were you into this show, and did your family watch this when you were a kid?
Well, wait, before we go there, I was going to say, did you watch it with your kids? Did you sit down and watch it with your kids when they were growing up?
We tried to. It didn't catch their interest. I think Charlotte now would appreciate it because Charlotte is very much into Amish culture. She like loves the Amish, and she's just kind of fascinated like with that whole genre, if you might want to call it the cottagecore genre. So I think she might be. She's walked in the room a few times while I'm watching it, and she knows what Little House on the Prairie is, but she has yet to sit down beside me and watch an episode together, which we're going to make it happen. She's got a newer boyfriend, so she's spending a lot of time with him.
Well, that's interesting because I feel like most girls, maybe it was our time in the 70s and 80s, but I would think most girls would be interested in Little House when they're not now when she's older, but even when she was little, I would think that she would have been interested in that.
Because, she was born in 2006. We got to take that into consideration. And she really like very much gravitated towards like animation and any show that would involve like singing and dancing, like Camp Rock or School of Rock and stuff like that. So I think from her perspective at that time, she was used to seeing those types of shows, and to see such an old looking, slow show and being like 4 or 5 years old, it just didn't stick with her. And I'm not the type of dad that's going to force my kids to sit down and watch shows with me. I probably should, but I'm just not that type. I like them to.
Well, you can wheedle a little.
Come to me.
You can wheedle a little bit. So as far as my history goes, I saw the series also. I was born in 76. And so my family did watch this show when we didn't always have a TV growing up, to be honest.
Like the Ingalls.
Yeah, and when we first got the TV, it was all rabbit ears. But yeah, we would watch it a lot. But I think some of these episodes we didn't, maybe I didn't see all of them, and that makes sense because I think, back when it was, first aired, if you didn't catch the episode, you were out of luck until the next time it aired, right. Or there was a redo, like you said. But I mean, we watched it with my family. In fact, the other, when I come home, sometimes my parents would turn on an episode here or there and they'd be watching it, and I was totally not interested. I would just be like, all right, I'm going to go do something else in my room. I'm talking about just this past year, not even, because I'd be like, what are you watching? He's like, Little House on the Prairie. I was like, okay, I'm going to go read a book in my room.
No wonder you hated it when I brought it up then. Okay.
I was just like, been there, done that, not that interesting. And now I'm like, why did you think that? Because this is actually really good. And I was, I entered into the process intrigued about how I would feel about it. But yeah, watched it a lot. Like I said, I remember it being this cozy series, but some of these episodes are in my subconscious all the time. But I somehow forgot they were Little House episodes. Or, I would think about them sometimes. Like there'll be one that I talk about later that I think about all the time. But I guess when it came time to pick our episodes, I never thought once about picking that one because I was just like, it just didn't dawn on me that it was a Little House episode. So in my head, it's just like, it's almost like that happened to me when I was growing up, or it's just a story that I know about, but I forgot it was a Little House episode. But yeah, I just think this was a lot more, it was a lot more, like I said, horrific in some cases than I remembered, or some of the stuff that happens, I'm like, oh, this isn't exactly safe television that like I remember it being. That it's like some of this stuff is downright scary. Because I was over at my sister's yesterday and I was telling her I was rewatching Little House, and she said, well, are you feeling wholesome? And I told her, well, actually, let me just give you a rundown of all the stuff that happened during the show, which is interesting because it has to be entertaining. It has to be entertaining. So there has to be some sort of drama. You have to keep the drama going. You know, as I told her this, she goes, you know, I don't know if Vaughn would be able to handle it, especially that episode. And I thought, well, you know, like I said, maybe it would go over his head, or, you know, who knows. But I did wave the flag of an idea to her that maybe this would be a book series she could read with him, or they could, you know, maybe he could start, because he's been reading Magic Tree House, so he likes books about historical fiction. And I thought, but he's a really good reader, and he tends to read those books really quickly. So I thought, well, maybe you could bring him a Little House book. And I was thinking, well, I wonder if he would enjoy it, because it has, you know, girl leads. Mm-hmm. But still, like the thing is, it's still life on the prairie, and it's like, how did people live back then?
Yeah, it's not a girly book at all by any stretch of the imagination. But I would say, like, I feel like I have to say this since we're talking on microphone. You're talking about a child reading Little House on the Prairie, which is a children's book, but it's a children's book that doesn't stand the test of time 100%. So it's definitely best to like read it with a parent, so the parent can provide some context. I think that would be wise, especially some of the songs that Charles plays in that first book are very, very race coded and probably need some context for some of that stuff.
Yeah. Now we're actually going to pivot to the books right now. So there's a question I wanted to pose to you about this. And I know you have some stuff you want to talk about, but you mentioned that you are kind of hoping the new series might be a faithful adaptation. Yes. Well, I want to press into that a little bit and see what you mean, because apparently, Michael, someone, like, I was did some research on somebody about people who complain that it's not like the books, you know, like always, that the original Little House series is not like the books. And Michael Landon made the comment that I can't do an episode about all the steps it takes for Carolyn to bake a cake. You know, so there's a lot of parts in the books apparently where it's just going through an everyday, kind of like a slice of life.
Yeah.
What we're gonna do, or like how we churn the butter or whatever. Like, you can't make a whole episode about that. So that's why he like inserted some things in there. So how faithful of an adaptation do you want? Do you want like a full episode about a cake, or what? I mean,
that's a good point. They do talk about food an awful lot. Like, that's the central theme of the book, is like, we're going to grow some food, we're going to harvest the food, and now we're going to eat the food. And that's your whole story right there. The hardships that they faced, I want to see that. I want to see that portrayed. I want to see, I hope they give the guy a beard, because like it's so like integral to Charles Ingalls to have a beard, and Michael Landon skimped out on that one. They actually did like a PSA before the show even began, just so people wouldn't be pissed off. I swear this is true. Before they aired the first episode, they said Michael Landon did not grow a beard, even though Charles Ingalls has a beard, and here's why. And they had to kind of temper that back. So I want to see a beard. Okay. I want to see them in motion a lot, because the Ingalls family moved around a lot. And the show Little House on the Prairie is based around Walnut Grove almost 100%. But the fact is they set up shop in all kinds of different places, and their travels were part of that. So I'd like to see some of that. I'd like to see Ma, Carolyn, portrayed a little more faithful to the books as well, because in the show, she's wonderful. Wonderful mother, caring, giving, always with a smile, always with a lesson. That's not how the Ma was necessarily in the book. She was like the voice of reason of the household. And she was kind of the one who would push Charles in the right direction, and not always with a smile and a wink. So I'd kind of like to see her character be a little more true to the real Carolyn Ingalls. And just to show us how hard life is, because Charles had to borrow money all the time. And they show that in the show a lot too, how he has to borrow money a lot. But the fact is that he needed the help of his community, and he needed help of those around him. And I'd like to see that kind of portrayed too.
Yeah. Well, what else do you want to tell us about the book, Steve?
What else?
You said you had some research you wanted to share.
I mean, Lindsey, I did a lot of research, like way more than I should have. But what I'm prepared to talk about is, the fact of who wrote these books. That's a controversial question, and it didn't raise controversy until like recent years. The name Laura Ingalls Wilder is like blazoned across the front of the book. So, of course, this is her story. But this story took place in the 1870s. She did not write any of these books, until the 1930s, when she was 50, 60 years old. And the only reason she did is because she was getting the encouragement from her daughter, Rose Wilder Lane, her daughter Rose was raised with education, graduated college, and she was a writer at a newspaper column, and she was pretty successful. But the market crashed, and that took all their money, and the Ingalls were even poorer than they were before. And Rose Wilder was supporting Laura and her husband Almanzo, but when the market crashed, they had nothing. So that was when the idea was born for Laura to start writing her story. And we know from Laura's other writings that she does that she's not great at writing dialogue, and she's not great at like putting a picture, a story together, but she's really good at like recounting her memories, and the stories themselves are solid, but it's clear she needed help. And reading Rose's works that she has written in her name, it looks pretty clear that she had a big hand in editing these books. And she is the editor. I mean, no doubt about it. She did edit these books. But there's a lot of speculation that she was a ghostwriter of these books as well. And I'm kind of one of those people that feels that way, that Rose, I don't want to say that she embellished any of the stories, but I think that she put her spin on them. And I think that she presented the book in a way that made it marketable and made it endearing to children, where I think Laura Ingalls by herself might not have been able to do that. But she's the one that had the stories. So this is all Laura's story as told by the adult Laura, as edited by her daughter, Rose.
So that's what you want the books to say from now on?
I mean, we don't know, because both of them have passed away at this point. And they never gave the rights to make this show. I don't think they had any inkling for a Little House television show. It wasn't until after Rose died and she passed the rights on to her lawyer that her lawyer sold the rights to the show almost immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I knew you were going to be talking about this, so I tried to do some just very cursory searching. And the main thing I found immediately was just that people acknowledged that the writing was definitely a collaboration. But Rose didn't get a byline. And, even though people say at the very least, she was a very good editor.
Yeah.
At the worst, she might have, helped to did enough of the writing that she should have had a byline. So it's not like anybody's saying Laura Ingalls didn't do any writing.
Of course not. No, because she was a writer of her own right, because she submitted like farm columns to like farm magazines about like weather crops and things like that. So she was a writer. She knew how to do it. But I think for being like, Rose was a writer at a newspaper that was a sensationalist newspaper. So she knew how to get people's attention, and she knew how to work language to her advantage. So I think that's where she kind of came in as a superior editor.
Yeah. It's really interesting, because I think, sometimes the role of the editor is a little, more unsung than it should be. I did a write-up yesterday or this weekend, and 3 people edited it, and I can say like for sure that it's a lot stronger now. And they helped like point out some things that I didn't have, and it makes me kind of want an editor in real life when I do my movie reviews. And I'm like, I wish I had that. but I don't got no budget. But it could, with your writing, it could help you to have an editor. But yeah, how much a role does the editor play? And sometimes they don't get very much credit, but they definitely can contribute to the success of how the book
They help sell it, sure. Sweet Child of Time is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is the way we record Sweet Child of Time. We hook up with our guests via video and we record it on audio. Recently, we've been doing video podcasts with the cast of Time Bandits. It's easy using Zencastr. You can record video or audio. You can also edit your podcast or your video via Zencastr. Join Zencastr using my promo code Sweet Child of Time, and you can get 30% off Zencastr. If you're ready to start your podcast, it's time to share your story. Share it with Zencastr. That promo code once again, Sweet Child of Time at Zencastr.com. The last thing I wanted to say about the books was, this is my last note I have about the books. And this ties in like with what I hope to see in the show. So I think the main difference between the Little House on the Prairie books and the Little House on the Prairie show, as we know it from the 70s, is the books are like where you immerse yourself into the world of Laura Ingalls. And you are Laura Ingalls. And, everything around you like pertains to that. But in the show is more of a nostalgia view of a time period and a sense of quaintness and community. And it just so happens to include a character named Laura, who is part of that community. So that's what I wrote as the big difference. And so when we see this new series, that's what I'm hoping to see is like us immersed in the world of Laura and stay there.
Yeah. And something you kind of hinted about, or at least, addressed some, but I think we should just talk about quickly is the fact. So before with the books, before this series, the main thing, the reason Little House has come up in my purview, and people like, if you listen to this before, I'm a librarian, so I get bookish news a lot delivered to me. But the Little House books today are considered very problematic to the point that many people think they should be removed from library shelves, or maybe like, hey, we'll give you this one and we're going to give you this other one by an Indigenous writer that writes about the frontier experience to kind of give a different perspective. Because if you read the books, and especially like, the pilot episode, you come across from that thinking that like Indigenous people are scary or that they're threatening. There's something to be feared. And like today, of course, now, we'll talk about when we talk about the pilot, but today, of course, it's considered like, okay, let's remember who was on this land first, and those kinds of topics. So so there's definitely some stereotypical writing about people, Indigenous people at the very. I don't know if are there people of color in the book, Steve? That's something I'm curious about.
The same doctor that's in the show, he's a character in the books too. Like in the first book, it's like I'm sorry, I think it's like the third book. They come down with a case of malaria, and like the town doctor, who's a black doctor, is the one that basically saves their lives. And he's a strong character in the book. And you're not wrong at all. And I would like to voice that I don't think that they should be pulled from the shelves for what they contain, but I do think I agree with myself with what I said earlier about your sister, that they just need a little bit of context to, just let people know that this is what was presented at the time. We don't view this as okay now, but this is how it was viewed at this time.
And thankfully today we're in a time period where we have people are understanding the importance of, okay, if you're going to have a character who is Indigenous, that, try to get at the very least a sensitivity editor or writer to scan your work and see, did you put in here anything that is kind of not, the character is not portrayed in a way that would be accurate or that's downright offensive. So, but like it's just interesting that the only time I ever heard about Little House till closer was people talking about how, these books are so problematic. And so which maybe that explains why I was just like, I don't need to be watching this problematic show that's so outdated. But I feel like in some ways the show itself tried to correct some of that past. we can get into that
ham-handedly,
more.
maybe a little bit. But I do think this newer show has a real chance because, I mean, we have to face it. Like when this was happening in the 1870s in Wisconsin and like the Midwest, it was a super diverse area. And the government was handing out these, these claim jumpers to anybody. So like, black men, white men, and then of course, all these different cultures coming together were like, German, Scandinavian, French, mostly white, but nonetheless, these are a ton of different cultures together. And it's noted that's one of the most diverse cultures we ever had in the course of our country was like 1870 Wisconsin, which is very weird, but it's also very true because that's where the government was pushing everyone to go and expand.
Right. Yeah. Well, were they wanting them to expand though, because they wanted to take up the space that, they had put a claim on this, that the government put a claim on this land that was lived in by other people. So they had to get people to come in and try to overrun those
Charles
people.
Ingalls himself, he moved his family into what is considered Indian territory before the government did anything. So he basically went and built his first house on Indian land or Native American land without anyone's permission. And meanwhile, the Native Americans were starving. So they would come to his house, take his food, just come in there and take all of his food and leave. And he saw that as a big affront. But of course, they were starving. So it's like, hey, there's this guy here illegally. He's not supposed to be here. So let's just go take all of his food, which was kind of just because he kind of made that claim 2 years too early. So he's not without flaw.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything else you want to say about the
I don't know.
Steve?
I feel like I went in a weird direction there. I want to get back to the nice and cozies. I don't have anything else to say at this point.
Okay. Yeah, when we're talking about the TV show, if you want to mention if they did it in the books, you can do that. So yeah, we don't have to leave the books permanently behind.
We never will. I'm still reading them. I'm on book 5.
Yeah. I know. I didn't revisit any of the books. I just watched TV. So I'm saying that for the listeners' benefit, not yours. Steve. You already know, but Steve is the resident book person, even though I'm the librarian. I don't know how that works, but yeah. Okay, so we are going to talk about, this is our meat and potatoes of our episode, or it's supposed to be, where we're going to go over our 6 episodes plus the pilot, because I feel like it's kind of important to talk about how they set the tone for everything. And so what we're going to do here is whoever suggested that episode will introduce it and kind of say, hey, why did you want to watch this one? What did you remember about it? What's your memories about it? And then what it was like to watch it again. And then the other person will say what they want to say about it and what it was like for them to watch it and if they remember this one, et cetera, et cetera. So starting with episode 1, the pilot, this was interesting because it was, why I wanted to watch it is because my hope was that they were going to cover the treatment of Indigenous people right away. Like I thought in the episode that because I knew it was in the books that they were going and that there was fear that they would be invaded by Indians, I was like, okay, I bet it's going to come up in this episode at least once. And there were characters that came actually multiple times. But this was an hour and a half. So it was a very long episode.
Yeah, 2-parter basically.
The longest one. Yeah, the longest one of them all. So let's see. What do I want to say about this episode? This is them moving from point A to point B. So they started in Minnesota. Is that correct? At the beginning of this episode, they are in what they call the little house in the big woods. That's what Laura calls it. So where is that?
I'm pretty positive that's Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Okay. Right. Okay. Because it's Wisconsin to Kansas, and then they end up in Minnesota. All right. So they start out in Wisconsin. And I think this might be the only episode that had voiceover. Like a majority of the episode, there's a lot of voiceover.
Like for the first 6 episodes, and then they stopped.
Okay. So she's kind of narrating, maybe using passages from the books.
She is. Yeah, she's reading exactly from the book.
Passages from the books. And then they kind of show what's going on. This episode had a lot of drama to encourage probably viewership right away, because that's how you get your get your show kicked off is your pilot has to have a lot of engagement for them to see people were tuning in. So there was a lot of dangerous stuff happening there. There's the starting off, Steve, with this poor dog, Jack, who's forced to run behind the wagon the whole time. It's like there's no riding in the bed of the wagon for you, Jack. You just have to run behind.
They said there was in the book. They said there was no room in the wagon for Jack, so Jack ran behind them. But according to the family and Laura, Jack loved doing that. But also, according to Laura and the family, like Jack is like a tool. He's like a commodity. He's like what they use to keep the wolves away from the livestock. He, like, when the girls go out in the woods to gather berries, Jack goes with them to protect them. So he's not like a family pet. He's like a thing, like a tool. So I guess Charles is like, we got to work the tool while we're going cross country and make sure his muscles are in good shape. But yeah, I would definitely have him sitting in Laura's lap, 100%.
Yeah, like as soon as I saw the dog running behind, I was like, that dog is going to get tired. And then they all start, there's a scene where they cross a creek or a river or something, and they're in the wagon, and the horses are about to drown themselves. And they just left poor Jack on the bank, and he's barking. And then Laura's like, hey, we are, Jack isn't going to make it. And Paul's just like, too late. Too late
We'll get
now.
another dog. That's probably what he's thinking.
Yeah. So that was
upsetting.
That was like upsetting. Yes. And when I watch TV shows, I almost always get upset because of treatment of animals.
Hallelujah.
Like that poor horse in the first episode of Walking Dead, but we won't go there right now. Okay, so this is about them moving to Kansas for the home that they kind of set up temporarily, and what it takes and how they're first trying to find just a place where they can settle down. And Pod chooses this plot of land, and they, because they set to work building a house, and Carolyn's like trying to lift planks that women were, at this time at least, not equipped to handle house building and things like that. But they had this dirt floor. That was something that was notable. And I did notice that Ma was complaining that she had a dirt floor, but then by the end of the episode, there was planks on the ground, but nobody had ever talked that we never saw that happening.
They can't show everything. They can't show them baking the cake, Lindsey.
Yeah. But it's noticeable because they brought up that he said, we'll get a plank floor eventually. And then all of a sudden there's just this plank floor at the end of the episode. It kind of showed up all of a sudden. I know they had to choose what to put in it because this is the pilot probably, and they only had hired so many people. The only other character that's in this episode is Mr. Edwards, which was good to see at least. Yeah.
And this is all, everything you said is very, very 100% in the books as well. You can almost read the book and watch the show at the same time with this pilot episode. And when they're building the house, Carolyn actually did a lot more work than they portrayed in the show. In the show, they're like, oh, she can't lift a log. Oh my God. But in the show, she was doing everything that Charles was doing. No, I'm sorry, not in the show. In the book. In the book, she was just as rugged as Charles was and would do just as much stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be.
Yeah, no choice in the matter. And just like in the show, in the book, he just kind of seemingly chooses a spot at random. Like, okay, here we are now. Yeah. And everybody's like, okay, I guess.
And I don't think that was the original plan. They were going to go further, but then Paul just decides, this is it. We found it, because he found a nice piece of land. So he just decided that was his. Okay, we see maybe what is a key component of the show right away, where the parents apologize to the kids. So I thought that was notable, that this is a family, the Ingalls family, and this is throughout the show, that the kids are always having hearts to hearts with their parents, especially Pa. It does happen some with Caroline, but I think in our 6 episodes I picked, Caroline or Ma only had one heart to heart, as opposed to every episode Michael Landon or Pa has a heart-to-heart, but Pa is not above apologizing to his kids when he does something wrong. And he knows he needs to apologize to Laura for what happened to Jack. So I thought this could be another big appeal of the show, is that it has family, like showing care for one another in healthy ways that you might not always see on TV.
Yeah. I mean, these parents listen to their kids, they care about their kids, and they want to strengthen their kids. Just like the dog, like I was saying, the dog has this purpose. Like Charles has these daughters that he's raising, but he needs to live with them as well. So he knows that, you can't just make a tool do its thing. You have to, what am I trying to say here? He wants his daughters to grow up and be, good citizens and be able to do for themselves. But at the same time, he has to live with them until they do. So he wants to make his home environment as loving as possible. So to do that, he makes himself a really empathetic person. And that character comes through both in the real life Charles Ingalls and the TV Charles Ingalls as well. Like he is the guy that like works through the problems with the girls, and he is like the sounding board. And yeah, I remember like he, not Charles Ingalls, being Michael Landon. Michael Landon all through my life has been like revered as like the best dad, like the uber dad that could ever be, that is both strong and hardworking and caring and loving in equal parts. And that's a big strength of the show. I mean, the parents being as loving as they are. And you don't see a lot of that in shows where a parent will apologize to their kid for making their kid feel bad. Usually it's like, it'll be more like, let me help you understand why I did that. But here, like it's an apology, which means a lot more.
Right. Laura is established as the center of the show, even though in a way, like Michael Landon is, I mean, he's the creator of the show. He gave himself one of the best roles. But of the kids, Laura is established early on as being kind of the most important. Mary's the oldest, and maybe she's the best or the good one. But Laura is the one who draws people. Like Mr. Edwards seems to have a special relationship with Laura. And when these indigenous people come to visit, it's Laura that the chief goes to. She's almost like what you could call, we don't have these terms for white people, but like a magical white girl, if something existed such as that. I'll probably get some ugly comments about that one, but like the chief just seems to want to honor her, and he gives her his special bear claw, and she doesn't really even do anything except, I guess she asks him a question. She's brave enough to ask him a question when everybody else is cowering under the table. So she's shown to be like a special connection with this Indian chief. So I thought that was very interesting. And the fact that they called out that this tribe was the Osage, which my ears went up because we had the movie that came out, The Killers of the Flower Moon, was about the Osage people. So I'm like, okay. But probably when I was little, I didn't pay attention at all to like which tribe this was. So I think overall this episode just shows, maybe like later on when the show started, they brought in humor, and I mean the only humor really to be had in this show is kind of Mr. Edwards who comes in, but this episode really shows like the realities, might be what you were thinking of with the books, like how hard life was getting established and like how dangerous it was. And so this episode is a lot more serious than maybe the other ones were. And later on, we had the drama, we had the humor and all that. But this is kind of a very simplistic, just like one family and living together on the prairie and just trying to show how hard it was. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch this episode specifically for our podcast here. It wasn't one of our agreed upon, but I've seen the pilot many times. I think we probably should have included it in our watch here, and I'm glad you talked about it now because it does, show a lot of the similarities to the book and how it followed that. I think this new series might follow some of these exact same beats because these are the known beats of Laura's life at the very beginning. So we probably will see a lot of these same things happen again. I kind of hope.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's move on to the next episode, which is one of your choices, which was called Ma's Holiday.
Yeah, I picked this one because of Victor French, of Mr. Edwards. I got ready to call him Victor Edwards, and it's not his name. I picked this one because of him. I'm a big fan of this guy. He directs some of the episodes later on. Victor French gets behind the camera and directs quite a few of these episodes. But when you first agreed to do this, one of the first things that came to my mind was Mr. Edwards letting the dog lick the food off the plate, Mr. Edwards running around with his gun, and Mr. Edwards losing baby Carrie. And these are the first things that popped into my head. So of course I had to pick this episode, Ma's Holiday, because that's where all these things happen. The scene where he has the dog lick the plate clean is a scene that goes through my mind every single day of my life. I think about it all the time. It's just a core memory for me. This episode is episode 8 from season 1. And basically what happens here is Charles uses a work trip as an excuse to take Carolyn on a second honeymoon. And they need a babysitter for the girls while they're gone. And the babysitter they decide on gets a sore throat. So they last minute pick, Mr. Edwards just happens to be walking by the house. The girls run up to him and say, "Hey, will you babysit us for a week?" And he's like, "Starting now? Sure. Why not?" So he babysits the girls while Carolyn and Charles go on their quote unquote second honeymoon, which is a typical second honeymoon. They're not having a great time.
Do you want to say why they aren't having a good time, Steve?
Well, first off, it was a work trip for Charles. This is so lame. But anyway, Carolyn misses the girls. Charles takes her to a play that somebody told him was going to be awesome, this funny play. But I think they saw the play from last week because tonight is the premiere of this depressing play about women missing their daughters or something along those lines. I can't remember what it's called, but we had the voice talent of Rocky and Bullwinkle. Did you recognize that voice in the movie that they were watching, the play?
I did. It didn't strike me that it was Rocky and Bullwinkle, but I was like, oh, that must just be the voice that everybody did back then.
No, that is that person that did the voice for this episode. I saw that in the credits, and I was very pleased to see that. The same person that does Rocky the Flying Squirrel. But yeah, they decided to cut their trip early. And meanwhile, while they're on their vacation, Mr. Edwards he has a big heart, okay? The guy's got a big heart. But he does a lot of stuff wrong. He carries that gun around. He shot a snake. He makes the kids eat the snake. The snake tastes terrible. He shoots a hole in the roof at one point with his gun. He's walking around with a loaded gun, shoots a hole in the roof. What else? He lost the baby, so he keeps the baby either on a leash around the clothes pole or nailed to the roof of the house. So this dude's a class act. But the thing I like most about this episode is when it's all said and done, Charles and Carolyn have a bummer of a trip. And Mr. Edwards kind of does not a great job with the girls. But when they come together at the end and Charles and Mr. Edwards are like, "Hey, how was your week?" They're both like, "It was awesome." Mr. Edwards is like, "Everything was great here. No problems with the girls." Charles is like, "Hey, me and Carolyn had an awesome time. You know what I'm saying?" They didn't have an awesome time. They had a terrible time.
That's true. I noticed that. And I feel like there was something in the episode, now I can't remember, there was something about that there was something about that tendency of guys to do that and act like everything's okay. I feel like there was something embedded about that in the episode itself leading up to that point that made that 10 times funnier. But yeah, this was a funny episode, choosing Mr. Edwards as your babysitter. And then the girls kept saying, "Well, aren't you going to give us a kiss goodnight? And aren't you going to read us a story?" Mr. Edwards has no idea how to be a dad or how to get kids to bed because it hasn't been his experience. But yeah, I enjoyed the part where he nailed Carrie's dress to the roof. But with Charles and Carolyn, the other thing that kind of got to me and made me laugh was that they were going on this second honeymoon. Well, the very first night, you see them just sleeping outdoors on the ground with a quilt over them by a fire. Yeah. There's no tent, no air mattress. I'm like, I wouldn't call this a second honeymoon. She's lying on the ground, probably with bugs crawling all over her. But boy, she looked so pretty in this episode. Her hair is like down her shoulders, and I'm like, wow, they really picked such a good-looking woman to play Carolyn. My gosh, she's so pretty.
And this is the only episode that we actually see her bare shoulders, I believe. So this is a coveted episode right here.
Yeah, yeah, they're just kind of lying on the ground, and of course she's already missing the girls, but she's trying to play along and be like, oh, yes, I'm not going to think about the girls at all. If the eggs, something about the eggs. If the eggs go bad, they go bad.
Exactly. Well, they're counting every penny, I believe. I did have something I wanted to say about that because, when they're sleeping outdoors, I'm going to say to their credit, they had to travel a long distance, and there's no hotels or nothing like that. So that's a very common thing to sleep on the road on the way. So they were on their way there. Mm-hmm. But she wakes up in the middle of the night. She's like, oh my God, the eggs. Like she has some dream. And then the very next night, Laura's in bed and she wakes up and she's like, oh, the eggs. So it's like her mother sent her this psychic message that took a little while to get to her, but eventually it made it.
Yeah. Yes. The girls, I forgot about that. The girls go outside and during a thunderstorm to collect the eggs, which is why Mr. Edwards shoots the hole through the roof.
Yeah, he thinks they're chicken thieves, of course. And that bonnet, the last thing I want to say is that bonnet that he promised that he would buy her a bonnet if she didn't miss the girls, which of course doesn't happen. But the bonnet's going to cost $2.50. And I've learned from watching a bunch of these episodes that you can't really count on their money and their years of their succession of things happening being accurate. Because in later episodes, they talk about how Charles makes $1 a week at his job. So a bonnet costs $2.50, but a week's worth of work is worth $1. So that math is not mathing, as the kids might say, Lindsey.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, bonnets were so unaffordable, why she would be so excited about the bonnet. I don't know. That, maybe a bonnet is like a TV.
It has antennas inside, and she can pick up some signals. Or maybe it's a Marc Jacobs bonnet, perhaps.
Yeah, or a fancy purse. Exactly. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it would line up, but I think what I got was the bonnet was a special treat. Carolyn did not think they could afford this $2 bonnet. So maybe it would cost more than a week's
She could make 5 bonnets in an hour. I know she could.
Mm-hmm. All right. Richest man in Walnut Grove. This is also yours.
What? Me again? Okay.
Yep.
Well, I just picked this one because this episode highlighted, how poor the family could be at times and how just an example of Charles and the family working together as a unit. And then as a bonus, we get a Mrs. Olsen payback where we get to leave her speechless at the end of the episode, which is very nice. So that's the reason I picked this one. The Richest Man in Walnut Grove, this episode is based around Charles had been working hard at the mill to get paid to be able to pay off his loan at the Olsen's Mercantile, but then he's not able to get paid after all because the mill's not getting paid. Therefore, Charles is not getting paid. So he needs to come up with a bunch of money fast because they want to pay off the Olsens and they have the next season to look forward to. They need supplies, they need food. So Charles is looking for work. So I think he inherits about 3 jobs at this point. He works at the mill still. He volunteers to help Mr. Hanson with the horses, and then he volunteers to help a neighbor with his irrigation system, provided that he'll pay them. He kind of does the irrigation work pro bono, where he kind of agrees to do the work, and if he does a good job, he'll get paid. So he's kind of doing this on faith alone, which is, Charles Ingalls has a lot of faith, likes to put his put his faith in himself sometimes. So the rest of the family chips in as well. They, at Laura's suggestion, they do double crops of potatoes to make extra money doing that. Mary gets a job sewing because a woman that I can't remember the name that lives in town, but her hands don't work as good as they used to, so she hires Mary. Laura volunteers to do Mary's chores and to do Mary's homework for her to help her out with that. And Carolyn's out working on the fields while Charles is working his other jobs. So Carolyn is doing all the household jobs. Mm-hmm. This works out for the family. There's really not much to go into here because it all works out in the end. We get a nice, satisfying ending when they come up with all the money and they get to pay Miss Olsen and get to see the look on her face and see her eat crow, which we love that. Earlier in the episode, wait a second. Okay, I think I put my notes in the wrong place. But earlier in the episode, we got to see Mrs. Olsen and Mrs. Ingalls in the store. This is while they were still like owing money. So Miss Olsen was kind of on her case. And they start shouting Bible verses at each other as insults. So I thought that was very good stuff. Like who can like out scripture the other woman to get their point across the best?
Well, it's actually Charles. Miss Olsen's yelling Bible verses at Carolyn and Charles, and then Charles corrects her because she wants her to apologize, Carolyn to apologize for something she said when it was her who was being kind of mean and rude.
That's right. Yep. Oh, and I forgot the whole family working together, right? Carrie milks the cow. Don't forget.
Milks the cow.
And I wanted to say, every time Carrie is on screen, I love it. I've seen in the fandom, people are not fans of Carrie. And I think she's hilarious. I think her line delivery is really funny for a little kid, and the faces that she makes and her big fake smile. It brings me joy, Lindsey. I'm a big fan of Carrie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say I forgot to say this the last episode. So since we're talking about Carrie, I'll go ahead and throw in here. I was actually going to make that a point about Ma's holiday is that Carrie I feel like what they were saying is when it comes to her line reading and the way that she speaks, it's a little unnatural. Yeah. But when she's younger, what really impressed me about her is how somehow they got her to just turn on the charm. Anytime the camera's on her, she's doing something silly and making just vibrating with joy and smiling and laughing. So they somehow, I don't know what, I was hoping I could find, that was a genuine question I was asking the internet. How did they handle Carrie to make that, actually there was two of them,
there's twins,
right?
That's right.
There's twins. So maybe it was whenever one of them was grouchy, they got the other one signed up. But yeah, she has a certain charm to her that, it's different than Mary and Laura. But especially when she's younger, they had to have a kid that would just be so cute and that she fills that void, I guess, for them.
I think she's hilarious. I love her. I love her line delivery personally. I guess my other favorite thing about this episode too is I didn't realize that I picked an episode that Nellie gets punched in the face and gets a bloody nose from Laura, which is always fun. That's kind of a bonus in this episode. Of course, Nellie's going to be teasing about, Charles Ingalls being poor, but that really drove Laura to the brink. So I was liking to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting how I know the Olsens are in the books, but they, in a way, I kind of feel sorry for Nellie because she's the one that set up, because there has to be drama. She's always the one that is fighting with Laura and is always the antagonist. Yep. And it's like, no kid is that bad all the time. So, and Laura wasn't always a perfect angel either.
No, she wasn't.
But she got put in this role of the main antagonist.
It's a first impression thing. The very first impression that Laura had of Nellie in real life, or as she says in the books, is Nellie picking on her for being poor and being a country girl, and Willie picking on them for the way they look. So that's their first impression of the Olsens, that they're the rich family that teases them. So I think that, first impressions are everything, especially for the Olsens.
Yeah. there's a reminder that Charles is given to not be too harsh on Mrs. Olson. That is from the Reverend Alden. So that's kind of where Reverend Alden comes in. His role seems to be to remind Charles often not to be too mad at Harriet Olson. So I thought that was interesting. Also, the Ingalls, I also asked the question of why the Ingalls never have enough money, because that seems to be a recurring theme, is how they're always broke and always needing credit from Olson's Mercantile. But apparently, like, Michael Landon made a decision that the family would never get any better off than they are. He wanted to keep them poor all the time. So is that reflected in the books? Did they get more successful?
No. I mean, they were destitute their entire lives. So that wasn't Michael Land's decision. That was just reality for the Ingalls. Okay.
Well, even though, later on in the series, Carolyn's working at a restaurant, they're doing other jobs, and so he didn't stick with the books all the time. He did divert, but he followed at least that the family would never be any better off than they are now.
Well, I should say the show solidly diverted from the books around season 5. So a lot of like the later stuff, it's Hollywood fiction.
And this is when I became aware, this in the next episode, I think this is when I became aware of this thing that happened, that each episode has a twin almost.
It seems like it, yes.
Similar episodes. Because at some point you do sort of have to recycle plot lines, because it's hard to come up with an original idea. But the twin for this one would be Harvest of Friends.
Oh yeah,
which is actually the second episode. The where also Pa doesn't have enough money and he's just doing all these crazy jobs, and then the girls end up, trying to bail carry heavy things because their Pa's sick. He can't do anything. So it's like, this is a repeat of something that happened. But yeah, the family pulls together here. And I did think there was the funny line in this one for me was, again, with Reverend Alden, that he says that Charles would make a good preacher, and he says he wouldn't because he doesn't like tea.
Yeah.
Because Reverend Alden kept telling him how much he was drinking.
Everybody makes some tea when he comes by, and he's like sick of tea by now. Reverend Alden rules, by the way, the real life dude. I was just reading about how he celebrates Christmas, and like the poor community here in Walnut Grove didn't have any money for any Christmas presents. And he was also a pastor at a more well-off church. And so he got his congregation at the well-off church to buy specific items for the other church that needed them more. And that's something that, that he did as a surprise for the citizens of Walnut Grove, and they were all psyched about it. So I'm like, currently I'm all on board with Reverend Alden right now. He's my man.
Yeah. He's one of the regular recurring characters, along with Doc Baker and Mr. Edwards.
Oh, that's right. When I was talking about the Black Doctor earlier, that's Dr. Tan. I forgot that he is featured in an episode later on, I think season 5. But yeah, I forgot. Doc Baker is like the regular doctor around town. People are probably mad at me for saying differently earlier.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. They won't be too mad. All right. So shall we move forward to the spring dance? Okay. The spring dance is season 2, episode 6. And if you're ever in a situation where our numbers don't line up, just know it's because of that silly old pilot episode. Sometimes the numbers are off by 1, depending on which platform. Because Steve sent me some numbers and he sent me the titles, but then I got confused because I was like, okay, 1.8, and then I put in 1.8, and it wasn't the right episode. So I got super confused, and then I realized, oh, it's because of the pilot, and which is a common thing. It's
Michael Landon's fault.
The pilot messed up the number. Okay, so the spring dance is one that I remembered very well, but again, I got it confused with another a twin called Dance With Me. But this involves one of Laura's, because she does it more than once, Laura's desire to get taken by a certain boy to the spring dance. And in this case, the boy's name is Henry Henderson, and he's got extremely blonde hair. And what happens is there's a spring dance coming up, and it's a parallel storyline where you have the adults and the kids kind of doing the same thing. So Grace, Mr. Edwards' girlfriend Grace, and I can't remember what her original last name was, but Grace is really wanting Mr. Edwards to take her to the spring dance, but she wants him to ask her. And then Laura wants Henry to take her to the spring dance. Although when watching this, she said something to the effect of, everybody's already going except for him or Willie. So then you think, okay, does she just want to go to the dance? Is it really about Henry Henderson at all for Henry? She's just using him.
Did you see those
to
looks she was giving him at the beginning of the episode? She's in love, dude. Come on.
Yeah. This is actually a situation where Carolyn, or Ma, is to blame for all of the shenanigans that happens in this episode, because she tells them this story that all you have to do is make the boy jealous by making cheap's eyes at another boy, and then he'll get mad. And he does get mad, but that means he might not speak to you, not that he will then ask you to the spring dance. So then both Laura and Grace are trying these various steps tactics to try to get the right response out of the boy, and it all backfires. But it ends nicely because Ma remembers at the last moment by the grace of Pa reminding her, by the way, that, oh yes, you did make me jealous, but I got really mad. And then who actually asked who to the dance back then? Well, it ended up that it was Carolyn had to swallow her pride and ask Pa to the dance. So then the girls end up, asking their men folk to the dance, and it's very funny and sweet and harmless, really. And it's very obvious from the beginning that both of these guys really like the girl in question, but they feel like the girl is acting completely nuts. Like in Mr. Edwards' case, he thinks something's going on with her and the town doctor, which...
It looks like it is. It looks like it.
Yeah, well, she did that on purpose, but it's like, I never realized how nice and tall Dr. Baker is myself. But then also, the thing with Henry Henderson is that he really admires Laura's fishing skills so much. So she should have just leaned in the fishing thing from the beginning.
Yeah, and she's not posing either. Like, I think at some point somebody's like, "Oh, you're pretending to like fishing because of Henry," but she's not. Like, she's a regular fisher woman, I suppose. But she sounds awfully desperate this whole episode. I was like cringing so hard. Oh, you play marbles so good, Henry. Oh, Henry, look at you at that fishing pole, Henry. I mean, it was sickening.
Yeah. It was supposed to be, because Mary told her that she talked to the boy that she liked about stuff she thought he was good at. Because guys like to talk about it. But yeah, they don't want you to be like, oh, you're so good at podcasting, Steve. You're so good at wearing black T-shirts, Steve. It has to be a sincere compliment. Let's see. The other funny thing, we already kind of talked about offline, Steve, about that the Ingalls were just eating popcorn in bed randomly for no reason. Like, they're in, maybe they brush their teeth. I don't know if people brush their teeth back in, but they're just like, Pa and Ma are just sitting in bed, like eating popcorn while they're lying down. And I was just horrified by that.
I personally think that they were like hiding it from the kids. I think that they were having like a midnight snack and they were being sneaky and not letting the kids have any. Because popcorn, like in the book, they talk about popcorn in the books too, how it's like this awesome treat that they get to have. So I don't know if maybe they were treating themselves as adults or something, or... Yeah.
Well, I will have to say, when you make popcorn, the whole entire house smells like popcorn. They weren't having any secret popcorn.
You're right about that. You're absolutely, that house is pretty small. They know everything that's happening under the roof.
Okay, the last thing I wanted to say about this one is that I thought there was some really nice script in here, because with fishing, when Henry Henderson goes to, like, she and Willie, she's trying to make him, I didn't say that, but she's trying to make him jealous by coming on to Willie a lot.
I was going to talk about that, of course.
Okay, yeah, I'll let you talk about that. But when they're fishing and Henry comes over, and she kind of like, Laura has a fish and she pulls it really hard, And he says, if you jerk the pole that way, you'll lose them every time.
You caught that too,
and
huh?
I'm like, you're right, Henry Henderson. So, and then of course she tells Doc Baker that the best fish got away when she doesn't end up, there's no impact in what she's done and she's just ready to give up because of that. But I thought the script was actually really clever, some of the lines it had. So what do you want to say about this?
I was going to say, it seemed like Doc kind of picked up what she meant when she said the best fish got away. It seemed like he was on her side, like, oh yeah, I know. It seemed like he dug that. But yeah, I love this whole dynamic with Willie in this episode, because Willie is not always like the bad guy. He's always a naughty boy, but he's not as like hateful and spiteful as Nellie is. He's almost there, but not quite. And in this episode, he almost plays a friend role to Laura in a way. Like, we know he's doing this favor only for the marbles, but towards the end, he's like really digging their friendship and he wants to keep this whole thing going. Like, he doesn't want to stop. So like, I think that he's like desperate for friendship and it shows in this episode.
Yeah. Well, really, because he's such a twit, he doesn't really have that many friends. The person we most see him with is Nellie. And of course, she's not very nice to him and is very manipulative in her dealings with him. So the twin of this episode is Dance With Me, as I said, which was the actual, because there's another episode that is very similar in that Laura wants this certain boy to ask her to the dance, and the boy likes her too, but he can't seem to get up the courage. So it's kind of almost a reverse, where he's trying to get up the courage. And there's also the local spinster, and a guy comes to town who's an older guy, and he's trying to court her. The older man is trying to court this lady, but she's having nothing of it because she thinks she's happy hanging out with her cat. And so it kind of ends the same way, where these two couples finally get to dance with the person they wanted to. And that's in season 5. So I like both of these episodes, but I actually think I like the Dance With Me episode a little better. But yeah, anything else you want to say about this episode?
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, we got a double shot of like Mr. Edwards here. First off, we see him making an apple sandwich. Have you ever made an apple sandwich in your life ever?
I didn't see him making this sandwich.
He was sitting in front of the mill and having his lunch, and like Grace is coming up to him and talking to him, and he is taking apple slices and putting them between pieces of bread, and he's eating an apple sandwich. That was fascinating.
Was there any peanut butter to go with these apples?
Like it looked like just pieces of apple and pieces of bread shoved in his mouth together, which fascinated me. Any kind of new thing that actually came out in the 70s is pretty amazing. And then the episode ends like his dancing, Mr. Edwards dancing. I told you to pay attention to him at the end of the episode. What the hell was he doing? He was like fast boogieing all over the place, and then he knocks over somebody. And that person like scoots off screen. And then you see him like looking over at the person, like checking out to make sure they're okay. Did you catch all that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I saw Nels steps on Harriet's foot and she gets mad and walks off. And Nels is like, but Mr. Edwards and Grace are having a fine old time, even though he can't dance.
He's like
for
triple
anything.
Stepping. Like everybody else is like going dun, dun, dun. He's going dun, 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 dun. Like, I don't know what song he was listening to, but that was the weirdest dance.
They were
happy. And Charles is the last thing I want to say. Charles had a few they were dad jokes. He was telling Bible dad jokes, and the girls were like visibly rolling their eyes and giving him nothing. And so he had to go outside and smoke his pipe by himself.
Yeah. The other thing this is about Pa. Laura has a talk with Pa. She's kind of, because he senses something's going on, because she asks him, they have a conversation about Mom making sheep's eyes at another boy. And he never interrogates into this issue further. He says, she starts talking about, let's say someone does this or that, and likes a boy and doesn't, so then she's telling him this story, and then, but he doesn't press into it. And then he figures out at the end, oh, you like a boy. And that seemed, they had to not let that work so that it could extend the drama, of course. But I thought that was a rare moment where it's like, okay, you're not going to ask her anything further about this boy-girl issue?
I mean, we needed all this time so we can like look at, slow motion pull-ups on a tree. We don't have time for questions.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is Bunny, and this is season 3, episode 2, and this is a wild episode. This is one that I don't think about all the time, but I think whenever I saw Little House being talked about on social media over the last couple of years, it's always this scene. Always this episode is the one that somebody shows a clip of, because it famously ends with Laura pushing Nellie down a hill in a wheelchair to prove that, she's not lame. So
that's questionable.
It's a very yeah. And it's like, you could really hurt somebody. Yeah. She could have really hurt her. Yeah.
This is a wild episode. And I think people keep coming back to it because this is one of the best episodes. Like this might be one of my favorite episodes I've watched over these past couple of weeks. This one and the one that follows it, the race, because this is like part 1 of a 2-part episode.
Yeah. Which I was not aware of because they didn't call it part 1, part 2, but it's almost like continuity wise or narrative wise, they do end up working in succession, including maybe an episode that was further which I didn't see, wherein Laura trades Bunny for a stove, I guess, to give to her ma.
That happened back in season 1.
Yeah, it's like it happened somewhere during the show, but in a way it's continuity with that as well. But so in this episode, Nellie has taken possession of the horse that Laura used to own called Bunny. So Nellie is wailing on the horse and mistreating it just to show that she can. And she ends up spooking Bunny enough so that she runs into a tree and gets knocked out by a branch and falls on the ground. And then she is partially paralyzed for a time.
That's why we love this episode. Yes.
But even though, she should be, and I remember the scene where the doctor is like sticking pins in her toes just to make sure that, okay, can you really not feel anything? This will prove it. And so it is real what she goes through, but it's going to be a temporary thing. And Laura feels so bad. I don't know. Part of me was like, okay, did Laura just feel bad, or was she more worried that what would happen to Bunny?
Yes.
So then she ends up bending over backwards and doing everything she can to please Nellie, like to make up for what happened to her. And she's doing her homework and not getting to hang out with the new blonde boy, who's a different blonde boy than the Henry Henderson was. This one's named Jason. And I actually thought maybe Jason was Henry when he got older. And I was kind of like, oh, they've kept up with him. Because again, they're fishing together and it's very much.
We do see Jason again later on too. So Jason does come back in another episode, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. But I mean, it wasn't Henry from the dance episode.
Another blonde boy.
So another blonde boy, which I guess she has a thing for blondes because, okay. But yeah, and Nellie kind of likes Jason too. And so she sort of talks her into not hanging out with Jason anymore, which kind of, I'm like, all right, Jason is nobody to be jealous of because his acting is terrible. He's pretty much, his whole demeanor is, "Oh shucks, Laura, what do you mean we can't go fishing anymore?"
I don't know. I like him better than Henry Hudson personally.
Henry was cute.
Jason's cute.
I don't know.
It's
just, but yeah, eventually Laura becomes aware that Nellie has been faking, and then she does this whole thing where she takes her out in a wheelchair and pushes her down the creek. Nellie stands up. Everybody knows she's been faking. And then Laura and Nels hug it out at the end, which is kind of weird. But he says, hey, you can just keep that horse. So she comes to apologize, but she apologizes to Nels and not Nellie for pushing her down, because, it's kind of considered by everybody that Nellie deserves. Yeah,
even her dad is like, oh, Nellie was really screwed this one up. Do you get I get the clear sense that Nels hates his wife and his daughter and maybe his son as well. He like has such contempt for them, and his wife is likewise contemptuous of him too.
Yeah, yet he like hardly ever stands up to her. He seems like he can't do anything about it.
The vibe is that she is the one who holds the money. Like anytime somebody comes in to like talk about credit or paying stuff or buying stuff, it's her. And anytime somebody needs help with something, it's him. So I think that, she's the money and he's the, proprietor, but she's in charge. And I guess he feels like I don't know. It's clear that he hates her. That's all I want to say.
I mean, that's the speculation people have that, oh, well, Harriet must really be the owner of the store. Somehow she holds the purse strings, so Nels can't do anything about it. But I guess in my head canon at this point, I'm like, Nels is almost like an abused husband.
Sure.
Like he seems to be being held hostage almost.
Yes.
Like he can't escape this life, which is bizarre because some of the things he goes along with, like there are a few times he does stick his foot down or put his foot down, but for dramatic sake, a lot of times he'll be like, hey, Harriet, you can't do that. It's wrong. And she's like, well, I know, but oh well. And then he'll be like,
oh, Harriet. Exactly.
Go along with it. It's
psychological
wild.
Torture, I think, is what it is. I like when Jason comes up and he's talking to Mr. Ingalls, and Mr. Ingalls is like, did you say something to make Laura mad? And he's like, no, sometimes girls just get mad at you anyway. And it's like, it could never be anything that I did. It's got to be all on her. So I thought that was a funny line, funny enough for me to write it down anyway. I really love, this is classic Nellie. When she's not quite getting what she wants, she'll go, oh, I feel dizzy. And then like her mom or Laura or whoever will like, oh, let's fix you. Let's fix you. So I really like that whole like playing up her injury is pretty good. And the fact that like they built this town, like this town did not exist. They built this town for this show, including the mill, like including everything. And some shots that you see of this show, sometimes you'll see like somebody on a horse. And you're like, that's not Laura. That's somebody else on the horse. But there's other scenes that it's clearly Charles and Carolyn get into the carriage with the horse, and it's Michael Landon himself that's like navigating the horse, navigating the cart, or it's, Mrs. Olsen herself that is actually atop the horse. And then when you see it running fast, it's not her. But these actors really are doing these things. And this town really was built, and they're actually doing all this stuff on set. And that's another thing that I hope that this new show does. No AI for us, no computer graphics. Please, I know they're shooting it in Winnipeg, so I know they're shooting it on location, but I really enjoyed all the scenery and all the town and all the settings and stuff of this episode, and just realizing that they actually built all this for the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, we didn't say this show has probably one of the craziest endings of any episode 2 of the Little House series, where after Laura has apologized and she's not going to be Nellie's servant anymore, then she sees Jason and Laura going fishing, and Nellie just destroys everything in her room with a doll. She's just like banging, like destroying every toy that she has. And this dollhouse that was the most expensive one from the catalog or whatever. So it's just crazy. She just ransacks her room in a jealous fit.
Even Willie is all like, "What are you doing? I could resell that." He's like thinking ahead, like wanting the money for it. And it's, I got to think, if a teenager in their room just completely destroys their room and like throws all their stuff around, I mean, usually like therapy gets involved, or you might be a little worried about your kid, or no, this is just typical Nellie. This is just what she does. She's evil.
This is way before therapy. way before any therapy existed.
She could have used some...
Except for like shock therapy or something. That would be
I want Nellie to take shock therapy. That'd be a great episode, a great side episode of Little House. A very special episode.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the music box.
Oh, that was my episode. And I think I might have did the same thing you did when I meant to pick another episode and then I picked this one instead because this one has the mirror episode, which is called The Talking Machine, which has the exact same plot as this episode, which I picked. It's called The Music Box. It's from season 3, episode 19. I picked this one just because I remember Nellie being especially cruel and teasing a kid to the nth degree. And that's basically what I wanted to see out of this episode was Nellie being terrible. I wanted to find a really good episode of Nellie being really bad. And this episode won over Heather. This is the first episode of Little House that Heather ever saw, was The Music Box, because this is the first one that I chose to watch when I started rewatching. And she fell in love immediately. So like this episode is a good primer episode, I guess, for anybody wanting to get into Little House on the Prairie. Mm-hmm. What happens in this episode is Nellie makes a little club for herself. She's the rich girl in town. So she makes a club and wants to invite everybody into the club, including Laura. And they're all up in the room and they decide to be mean to Anna, who's a good friend of Laura's. And Anna has a stutter, a speech impediment. And so Nellie doesn't like the fact that Laura is friends with this Anna person, but Nellie, she always wants, for whatever reason, to be on Laura's good side. I think she just wants to be Laura's friend because she knows other people like Laura. And if she's Laura's friend, then people will like her too. I think that's the whole deal. Laura's not having a great time over here with the teasing happening. And she sees an opportunity to steal this music box that Nellie has. And it seems like Nellie doesn't really care about this music box a whole lot. So Laura's like, hey, I'm going to take this thing. It's cool. Nellie doesn't like it. And besides, I hate Nellie anyway. Well, Nellie finds out that Laura stole the music box, but instead of wanting the music box back because Nellie doesn't really care about it, she just tells Laura, I'm going to tell on you. I'm going to tell everybody you're a thief unless you do what I say for the rest of your life or whatever. So that's Nellie's angle. So she wants Laura to not be friends with Anna. And that's basically the whole gist of it, is she wants Laura to be mean to Anna. This episode has great dream sequences where we see Laura's conscience come into play, where she's struggling with this dilemma that she has. So we get to see a dream sequence featuring Nellie as an executioner, and she's hanging Laura and she's sucking on one of her lollipops while she's doing it. And then at the end of the episode, we actually see Nellie is going to get a whipping for this one, because it turns out that everybody finds out what happened. And Nels is more mad about the fact that Nellie blackmailed Laura than he is about the fact that Laura stole the music box. Nobody's happy that Laura stole something. Even Laura's not happy about that. But they're more mad about the fact that Nellie took advantage of Laura during that whole situation, and that Nellie was teasing this poor girl, Anna. Like, even right in front of her dad, she was like teasing this girl, Anna. So that's basically why I wanted to watch this one. I wanted to see Nellie be as bad as possible. And this wasn't the worst Nellie episode, but it was a pretty good worst Nellie episode, though.
What do you think is the worst Nellie episode? Because I kind of thought this was her when she's the most hateful.
I mean, yes, I do agree, but the talking machine, she's just as bad in that one too, where she secretly records Laura with like a primitive recorder, and then she plays the recording for the whole class and humiliates Laura. And then the bunny episode and the race after it, that's really good bad Nellie there too. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm not a crazy super fan freak like I should be. So like,
it's okay. I just thought I wrote down Nellie's most hated episode, question mark, because I thought, she's always a brat. She's always making horrible faces, but the way that she kind of tortures this girl who stutters and is so mean, it really makes her look really bad, even more so than normal.
Yeah, I mean, I think this one and the talking machine are two like prime bad Nellie stuff. And we love to hate Nellie. The actress that plays Nellie is wonderful too. She gives interviews constantly, and she was rallying herself for the role of Harriet Olsen in the new series. She didn't get it, obviously, but she really wanted to be involved in it. The actress that plays Nellie, who's a wonderful human. Obviously she is, but she just plays this bad girl so good.
Yeah. Well, when you said that this had a dream sequence, I was like, there are 3 dream sequences in this episode, not just one.
I counted 2. I don't remember 3, but yeah,
there were 3. I just watched this one yesterday. It's like there's one where she's on trial, and then one where she's, I don't remember, but the third one they have the hanging. But there's 3 of them. It just keeps going. So let's see. My other notes were about the girl actor who plays the girl with the stutter. Which I thought her performance was so good, because during the scene where Nellie's like, you have to read this secret code or whatever, and it's Peter Piper picked a peck of peppers. I can't even do it.
You did it though. That's great.
And she's just like being so mean. And then the girl at one point, she's like so upset she can't even make words. So I just thought her performance was so good.
I like that too. I didn't like the forced apologies that Paul made Mary and Laura give to each other when Laura and Mary were mad at each other. I've never been one for like a forced apology like that. And I think that they presented that pretty well, because they had to say sorry to each other because Charles was making them, but you could kind of tell that neither one of them meant it. And I think that's true in almost every situation where you force someone to apologize.
Yeah. Well, it was accurate.
Yeah.
Laura has a trope of don't tell Pa, please, or don't tell my parents, please, because that happened in Bunny too, and that just seems to be something she does over and over again, is that she's always like, please don't tell, and then of course inevitably she has to tell. But this has, I mean, Laura makes some questionable decisions, but this is one where you see her doing something really wrong, like not just stealing the music box, but she kind of acts as a complicit witness to these girls bullying. And I kind of thought it was hilarious how at the end she's like, you all should be ashamed of yourselves. And I'm like, well, who else was in the room?
Exactly.
You set yourself up for failure by not being, brave enough to be honest. So I thought that her speech rang a little hollow there. Too. I thought this one was kind of weird that actually usually Nellie is not being nice to Laura, and of course she's being manipulative to her, but the fact that starts out because, oh, I want you to be in my club, and it's like, well, why would you want me to be in your club? She doesn't seem to respect Laura, like her that much, but like you said, that was a little, that got my attention too. I was just like, that is interesting how she seemed to. Usually we see her being mean to Laura or treating her badly, and here she's sort of wanting her in her club.
We're in the middle of season 3 right now. So there have already been close to 100 episodes of Nellie and Laura dynamics. And it changes on a regular basis. But at the same time, it usually stays rooted in the same place. But it always seems to be this theme of Nellie wants to be friends with Laura, but she doesn't know how to. So she's evil to her instead.
Yeah. And let's not forget that this episode kind of started, or maybe the events got started actually when Pa decides to give Laura a dictionary for her birthday.
That's right. Wait. Yeah, she didn't dig that too much, did she?
Because she's sitting outside the window looking at all the beautiful dolls and all the beautiful kind of fancy toys that are in the window. And she goes home and thinks, oh, it'd be not, which one of these am I going to get? And then she gets a dictionary, and she is obviously not that excited about this dictionary, but it's just the dictionary becomes this big deal. Are you using that dictionary? Are you using it, Mary? And Pa, it's like, Pa, why don't you buy yourself the dictionary?
Well, this is the same girl that got totally excited about getting a broom. I'm reading the books, and she talks for a couple chapters about how cool it is to have this store-bought broom that like works like magic on the floor. So they don't have a whole lot of stuff. So like just the fact that they have a book, even if it is a boring dictionary, but a household with a book, well, that's something.
Yeah. I mean, they were excited on the pilot about getting a tin cup and an orange. So,
That's right.
I mean, these girls are kind of easy to please, but maybe if she'd gotten something different for her birthday, that music box wouldn't have been so appealing.
Yeah, that's very true. But dictionaries, I got one right here that I keep by my desk. So I think they're wonderful things personally. If Paul asked me, I'd be like, yeah, I looked up 5 words today and I learned new stuff. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Okay, our last episode is Harriet's Happenings. And this is season 5, episode 8. Now, this is my fault that this episode got picked. So the reason I picked this episode is that I love, like, the scene I think was one of the funniest of the entire show, in my memory at least, is when Nels and Mrs. Olsen are in bed and she's got makeup on her face and curlers in her hair and she's trying to entice Nels to tell her what he might like her to wear to get things a little spicy. And he says, why don't you wear a paper bag? And she goes, a paper bag? So I, silly Lindsey, went on to what I thought was Google, and I put, which episode does Nels tell Harriet to wear a paper bag? And it said Harriet's Happenings. And so I just wrote that down without checking it.
That's all right. I mean, it's an episode of Little House.
So then I realized my mistake yesterday. And this is funny, though. I also said, okay, then I looked today to say, okay, what was the real episode? And some people said it was one called Meet Me at the Fair. It also wasn't that one. And then there was one called Divorce Walnut Grove Style,
Ooh.
I think. And so that has been determined to be the episode. However, for unexplained reasons, on most streaming services, that scene is deleted. So if you go to Divorce Walnut Grove Style on Amazon Prime and you scan through that episode, you cannot find that scene. They've just removed it.
We have a controversy on our hands here? What's going on? Why would they remove that scene?
I don't know. Somebody said because of just time constraints, but I'm like, the scene is maybe like 2 minutes. Why would you? It's like the funniest scene. But like it's on, if you go look on Reddit, people are like, where can I find this episode?
Okay.
People are like, the only way maybe to see this episode is if you have a copy on VHS still from the olden days.
Or if you're Lindsey Dunn and have a great memory. I mean, because I don't remember that line either. So hats off to you, or bags off to you, Lindsey.
So, but we did watch Harriet's Happening, so we will talk about it. So this episode is about fake news, which is very interesting because I had fake news that this was the episode I wanted.
Hey.
So at the beginning of this episode, Harriet is opening a new building in town called the Plow and Pen and Plow.
Yes.
Pen and Plow. And it turns out her cousin, maybe once removed, is moving to the area, and he's a journalist, and he wants to set up a newspaper. And some of the kids, like Laura and Albert, are working at the newspaper, helping to type, set type. And Harriet gets herself hired as the lead reporter. Well, Harriet's reporting is really a gossip column where she reports untrue news or things that are based on rumors alone. And these rumors have an impact and end up hurting people. And Harriet is wearing a really funny hat almost the entire episode that says press
hat, of course.
But the funny thing about the press hat is, and I could be wrong, but I think the purpose of the press hat is that it maybe held note cards or paper so that if you need to write something down, you could pick out the paper and jot it down. But she's just like wearing it just to like say that she's press.
Sure. I think they only did that in the movies, actually, with these press hats that say press on them. So you would know that they were like a journalist. So
yeah, they had access, right? They had access to the behind the scenes areas. Now Steve, you said that this episode sucked.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that in a minute.
We will.
But I don't know if I agreed that it sucked. I thought it wasn't as interesting as what I wanted, but it does have a scene where everybody's at the church at the end, and
Right.
Pa gets to make a big speech where he tells off Harriet Olsen, and not so much in that many words. He frames it as a sermon, which is a technique people still use today.
I mean, it is. That's why I thought this episode sucked personally, because I'm watching like my guy, Charles Ingalls, go up to the pulpit and like use it to humiliate somebody and to embarrass them, and then to like use them as an example, like against their will. I was like, I don't like you right now, Charles. This is not good. This is not what the pastor left you in charge to do. So I thought Harriet sucked, of course, but I thought that her comeuppance, that was the main thing I didn't like about it, was Charles's sermon, quote unquote, at the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, to be honest with you, yes, he wanted to call Harriet out, but he was also calling out the whole town because they were buying the papers. They kept talking about how the papers were selling, like they were all selling out. So it wouldn't do just to like tell off Harriet. He needed to get the attention of everybody because they were all. Now, he could have called a special meeting like after church. We'll serve you all some fried chicken and talk about this whole thing. But maybe, not taking up the sermon text to do it would be more appropriate. But it was dramatic, Steve. It was for the drama.
But yeah, you bringing that up, I'm so glad you said that, because again, that made me mad. I was like, you don't go to church to like tell everybody to like boycott stuff or to like persuade people to like be on your side. It's like, what are you doing? I don't know. I just couldn't get into it.
Yeah. So that was the main reason that you thought the episode sucked.
Then I was having so much fun in our season 1, season 2, season 3, and then season 5. And here's Albert. I forgot how much I disliked Albert, and I kind of forgot he existed in the Little House world. And then when I saw him in this episode, I was like, oh no, I forgot about this whole angle.
Poor Albert.
I mean, he's a poor kid, and Charles is a saint for taking him in. But yeah, first off, Harriet was just over the top in this episode. I usually love Harriet and her snide comments and her looks, and just, her whole vibe is just so distasteful and so evil. But in this one, she was just laying on this like fake saccharine charm, and it seemed like she wanted to sleep with her cousin or something. It was just giving me really weird vibes. And then the presence of Albert, I didn't like that. And I know that Laura is always going to get into trouble or something like that. But I mean, I think the trouble that she and Albert got into this episode, where they went in and they changed the paper around to say mean things about Harriet, and to like, fakely say that there was a 100% sale of at the store. I didn't like the kids stunt that they pulled this time around, and I didn't like Charles's wrap up at the end. So like there was 4 things like all in succession that turned little Stevie off. So yeah, this was not my favorite episode to watch.
Yeah. I guess one more thing to call out on this episode that has happened all throughout, but it's worth mentioning here, because there's the Garveys, which, came in later in the season, the Garvey family. And part of what happens in this episode is Mr. Garvey wants to give his wife Alice a gift. And so of course, he can't pay for it quite right now. He wants to put it on credit. And this is a constant theme throughout the show, that they want to put things on credit. Yeah. The Olsens don't really give out credit, especially for... Well, Mr. Garvey is a resident. I mean, there have been non-residents that tried to put things on credit before they'd established. But in general, they don't really like this. But there seems to be an expectation people have that, if they just go in and give a sad story to Nels, that he'll like kindly let them get away with it. And usually he does, yes. But it's like, okay, that would not fly today. So that's just something I want to say, that yes, of course, part of this is like Nels is established as the good, kind, nice spouse, and Mrs. Olsen, she's all about the money and not giving people credit. But it's like, okay, we don't work like that. We have credit cards now. We people pay off the credit cards. but no one's giving out store credit. I mean, maybe a Sears still does this, but I don't think that exists anymore. It's probably a good thing. If you don't have the money, you can't afford to pay for it.
Yeah, but this settler life, though, I mean, that's why the Olsons, I guess, were as rich as they were, because people were coming into town with nothing, and then they were expected to grow crops, but they need seeds and they need tools. So they have to go to the store to get credit for these things. So it's like, yeah, it's a dual-sided no-win situation. And Miss Olson will take advantage if she has to.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move forward because we're over 2 hours already. Okay, so Steve.
Yo, Lindsey.
What, as an adult watching this, who do you think is hot?
Very, very succinctly put. I mean, it's undeniable. I mean, I'm not gay, and I'm a man who's attracted to women, but I can recognize that Michael Landon is probably the hottest person on the show. Like, he's got that hair. He's got a great body. He likes to take his shirt off a lot in this show. Not just the episodes that we saw, but throughout the series, his shirt comes off a lot. He's a good-looking man, and his wife is equally just as good-looking. So I'm thinking like the two stars of the show, Charles and Carolyn, are by far the most attractive and have the most sex appeal. And then I look at the rest of the cast, and it seems like they deliberately are like hiring people who are homely or like have like no discernible features, or it seems like they went out on a limb to try to do that, with some exceptions. I mean, I do find Mrs. Olson attractive, but I don't find her like hot at all. Like, the sex appeal is zero. I think like in a different getup with a different attitude and a different like RFB, is that what you call that? She's definitely an attractive person, but she's not hot whatsoever in this show. So I only have a top two, and that's our Ingalls.
What about Mrs. Beadle?
Oh, okay. Yeah, teacher. Hot for teacher. Yeah. I kind of forgot about her because I view her as the school teacher. And yeah, I think
she's very
pretty. Yeah, I mean, but like, yeah, you said hot. And so like when I think hot, I think, sexual attraction. So I don't have that with Miss Beadle either. Like she's just so nice. And so like,
well, Carolyn's nice too.
Miss Beadle's always with the kids. So I'm associating her with children, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think hotness, there's more than just looks. And like I said, Miss Olson, Miss Beadle, definitely.
Well, I guess I meant more like, who do you find attractive? So I didn't mean like,
It's got to be that. And it's Carolyn. I mean, hands down, it's Carolyn. Let me ask you the same question. Okay. Lindsey, on this show, who do you find hot?
Well, it's interesting because, like you said, there aren't that many like traditionally like good-looking guys, and I never I watch it now and I can say, okay, I can see like. I think with Michael Landon, a lot of his appeal is like he's strong and also he's gentle and like, has compassion, and he's always like shown doing the right thing, the thing we want him to do. But I've never been like that. I think he's that hot, which is interesting.
It is interesting.
I don't know. I just have different, and I've always been kind of like growing up, my sister and my older sister and I, we always found like different people attractive. Like she liked Harrison Ford. I liked the character who played
Mark Hamill.
Luke, and I can't remember. Yeah, I thought Luke was cuter because I guess I like the youthful faces, when I was young. Or like I thought Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off was like the guy that I was attracted to, because he was funny, and I like people who are funny. I mean, Mr. Edwards isn't exactly hot, but he's really funny, and he's somebody I would want to like definitely have a meal with. But the other person who I thought was attractive, now not necessarily in the face, but I was like, wow, he has a really nice figure actually, is Dr. Baker, which I kind of alluded to before.
That a little bit.
Because I was like, oh, he's very slim, like he fits his pants really well. So that was interesting to me to be like, oh, Doc Baker, he's a good looking guy. So he's not traditionally, but yeah, I don't know, maybe more guys come along later, like in the show, like to become side characters, because
They
like
do.
most of our episodes were just right at the first 3 seasons. Those are the ones that really seem to stand out to us.
Well, yeah, like Charles's buddy in Harriet's Happenings, that blonde haired dude with the blonde beard who's
Yeah, that's Mr.
oh,
Garvey.
Mr.
That's what I was
Garvey.
talking
Yeah.
about before.
I found him very uninspiring as an actor. Like he was so flat, in my opinion. Like I didn't get anything off of that guy.
Yeah, I can see that. I had the same experience, because I was like, I mean, I remember him, like watching the show. I remember his character, but he didn't really exude much charisma.
None at all.
So yeah, you're like, man, did Michael Landon just like purposely cast a bunch of uncharismatic, unattractive men?
Maybe.
So he looked really good?
Maybe. It's interesting, though, that I find Michael Landon more attractive than you do. So that's very interesting to end on here.
Yeah. I mean, I think like objectively, he's a nice looking guy, but maybe, I don't know, it's the clean cut, he's almost like too good, too perfect.
I think what makes him sexy is that he's always sweaty, and he's like,
See, I don't like sweaty. I don't like that. There's like all these ones where he looks like he's all sweaty in the chest, and it reminds me of those like buttered rolls you get at a buffet, that the way they're all shiny.
Exactly. He has that buttered roll chest.
Did you know he's Jewish?
No, I didn't know that.
By heritage. I was like researching him today just to kind of see if I could, because I was trying to figure out, I was thinking, who was he married to? Did he have a spouse and all that? It turns out he's Jewish. So that's, at least on one side, he's, in fact, but they actually say today, like, even if somebody has one Jewish parent and one who's non-Jewish, you still say they're Jewish because they have it in their heritage. So, but anyway, it's in his heritage, and he did bar mitzvah and all that stuff. So it's interesting because we think of him as this like Christian dude, in the Little House world.
It seemed like in the first book, Little House in the Big Woods, they read as a Jewish family because on Sundays, they kept the Sabbath like 100% holy. They wouldn't do any work. Ma wouldn't cook on Sunday. They had to eat like, just raw vegetables on Sundays. They weren't allowed to play on Sundays. I don't know.
Well, Sabbath is Saturday for
Oh,
Jewish.
well, they kept saying Sabbath or whatever, but
it's like sundown Friday to sundown
That's
Saturday.
what they were alluding to in the book, is like during this time we can't do anything. And I don't know. I mean, I could be completely wrong, but as I was reading it, I was like, are they Jewish? Maybe they are. Could be. Michael Landon is. Maybe they could be too.
For overall thoughts, doing this rewatch to prepare, what was it like for you, and what do you think, was so good about this show? Why did it last so long? And, why is it still popular today?
Yeah, I wrote down a few thoughts about this. I thought it had a sense of timelessness because it's the show from the 70s and they're portraying life in the 1870s. So it definitely has this sense of like timeliness to it. It has a true sense of like community. And I think this show was popular and it was so good because, I think the show was popular because families could watch it together and any age group and any person could watch it and get something out of it. But I think something that made it so good, I wrote down here, I don't know how I'm going to tie this in here, but it's something that I think stands true about this show. It's something that the real Laura Ingalls said, is she said that somebody was talking about the old days to Laura Ingalls, the real person. And she was like, it can never be the old days because now is now. And I don't know. I wrote that down because I thought that was kind of profound. Like we see this as an old show, but at the time that it's happening now. So it's current to them. Even though it's an old show and we're watching it and it seems old, the things that they're dealing with are very universal. And Michael Landon made a big point to tie current events into the show. Events like women's rights, race situations, the Vietnam War. He would parallel the Vietnam War by like having like a Civil War soldier like portray a symptom that a Vietnam soldier might have. So I think these things all tied together are what really makes the show stand out, to me anyway. and make it even watchable now. It kind of does stand the test of time. In some areas, it does not. In very small areas, it does not. But in a huge sense, like these things are universal.
Yeah. I mean, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there, that even though it's set in the past, the issues that it's dealing with are still timeless. And like you mentioned, race, there's sexual assault in here, there's money woes. I mean, people always have money woes, inflation or scarcity of jobs, not knowing how you're going to make it, coming together with people like your neighbors. And yeah, war is in there, women's rights. So, I'm kind of repeating what you said, but I think it like even watching, because one of the episodes I did watch was Wisdom of Solomon, which has a little boy who is, it's after it's after the Emancipation Proclamation, but yet this little boy realizes, hey, we're not being treated any better, even though we're supposed to be free, but we can't get an education, we're not allowed to do anything but work. Is that all I'm good for? And somebody was saying, like, probably an episode like this wouldn't be made today, because there are people that don't want to have shows that talk about race in a way that like makes it seem like, hey, it's still an issue today, even though there's no slavery. There's still this discrepancy in our world about where people think people fit in and what are they good to do. Like, these people should get an education. Other people, like, well, only the special ones get an education, or only if you're really smart do you end up going to college. So it just struck me that like this show was kind of willing to go places that in a way like TV isn't even willing to go anymore. Sure. It is the ability to watch it with family. But, probably in like 10, 20, 50 years, people are still going to be talking about these issues, these same issues that plague our world, and they aren't going away. So that's, other shows come out today and they might be about a certain case, like a certain I watch a lot of true crime, a certain true crime case, that happened in a very specific time and place, but maybe that wouldn't feel as relevant later. Or, watching a reality TV show. Well, like, you can't rewatch Survivor, like you're not going to rewatch that because we've moved on, from this issue. So I just think it'll be interesting when making this show, this new series, if they can kind of recapture that quality of a show that is timeless.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it's not just like, hey, we decided to do a thing. Here it is. I mean, I do hope that they take this responsibility seriously and try to, tackle some things. Michael Landon, I saw like some actors of the show, because I was reading like interviews with the cast members, like as they were filming this show, like People magazine kind of stuff from the 80s. Mm-hmm. And they would say things like, they loved doing the show, but they were like, Michael Landon has like this huge vision for the show that it's going to be popular even after he's dead, and after we're all gone, people are still going to be talking about this show. And that's what Michael Landon's goal was, and he did it. I mean, that absolutely came true, because 50 years later, we're still talking about it right now. Mm-hmm.
So, any other thoughts before we bring this to a close?
Yes, but no. I mean, I do have so many more thoughts, and I do want to talk more, and I want to watch more episodes, but no, I recognize that we've been going over 2 hours. So I want to wrap it up by saying that I really enjoyed watching these episodes. I'm going to continue watching episodes, and I'm thankful, Lindsey, that you agreed to do this with me and that we're talking Little House on the Prairie. So thank you.
Yeah, just a reminder that we're going to be doing a second episode in June that will be more tied in with the new series and kind of a preview coming up. So look for that in both of our feeds. And then the new series will start July 8th on Netflix. Steve, did you have any plugs that you wanted to give?
July 9th is when the series will begin on Netflix. That's my plug. Watch Little House on the Prairie remake on July 9th on Netflix. I don't have any plugs. I'll cede my plugs to you, Lindsey. Do you have plugs?
Okay, well, I have a couple. I have a plug for Steve, who wrote 2 new songs about dark that he released on his Introvoid Spotify. So check those out. And I say that because I'm going to want him to keep working on songs, because we have a song in the hopper, hopefully.
That's right.
I went to Chosen Con in February, and I am still in the process of releasing the coverage that I did. I did a lot of interviews with the cast. They're very short. So if you're interested in those, you can go to my YouTube channel, one of my stories, or I don't have them on the podcast. My plan for the podcast is once I have all the interviews come to probably turn them all into one podcast. So you listen to them all at the same time. But they're on Instagram, on my Instagram channel, one of my stories, or on YouTube or on Facebook, which my Facebook is just Lindsey Dunn. And usually I post things publicly, so you can check them out on those things. Also, the arts and faith community that I'm part of is, set to release their latest top 25 list, which is a top 25 films by women directors. So look for that coming soon. And my last plug is Steve alluded to a cast podcast. I'm listening to a particular one, which is the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast, which has Nellie and Almanzo in it and another host talking about recapping the old episodes.
Oh, fun.
So that's a really fun one because Steve, they have an episode about the music box and about Bunny and the race.
Okay.
So I think you'll really enjoy it. Yeah. So if you want to hear some of the cast members talk about their memories of recording on set, I recommend that. Okay.
I feel like the plug was just for me. Yeah, that's great.
Well, so we have reached the end of our podcast. We hope you will tune in for more Little House coverage as we come along. Rumor has it we may even have some interviews coming out that we'll be releasing in the public soon with some of those cast members in the new series. And until then, I hope everybody always finds water and shade and shoes.
Thank you, Lindsey.
Bye.